Hello. How's it going? Okay. How was your day today? Let me just adjust the chat here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, still working on the flamethrower. Um, Today I'm kind of doing just kind of a test. I only have like a couple hours before I'll have to get off and probably go to sleep. So it looks like it's crashing, so that's fun. Um, yeah, so the test I'm doing today for the flamethrower is like mixing and like making different fuel for the simulation. So like traditionally with like Houdini simulations, like you're just kind of injecting a basic fuel that's like a global value, and like you know, in nature there's like different variables with fuel, like viscosity and like uh, gas and like napalm. They have like different burn rates. So I'm doing a test to see if I could kind of expand upon what they do. So we can make like multiple gas types with different burn rates. So uh, so for my test, I basically just kind of have like a grid with 3 different values. So we have like gas, diesel, and napalm, and they're all kind of being labeled like fuel underscore type. And then we have a global temperature. So like right now, I'm just kind of isolating the gas and the temperature, and I want to emit temperature that ignites the gas here, and kind of just dial in the values for when we actually like plug in a real emitter. So then like the gas should burn up very quickly and contribute to the temperature. So we're gonna try and do something like that today, and we'll see how far we get. So I'm kind of like taking some stuff that I tried doing like a couple of years ago with like my explosion, and kind of expand on that. So like I'll like this one is kind of like using the native Houdini. Like I kind of rebuilt all the solvers to get this kind of look. So I kind of taking a lot of that stuff that I did before and trying it again, but this time with like flames and actual like fuel injection. So I'm just kind of setting it up, and then we got to get into debugging and figuring out why. So I'm kind of using the older nodes for now before I get into the newer ones, because I was testing it with the newer ones and they don't seem to be behaving the way I'm expecting to. Like I'm seeing some temperature being emitted, but the fuel itself like isn't being eroded here. So like with this much temperature being emitted, I would start expecting this fuel to start burning and going away, but it's just kind of staying constant. So I have a feeling it might be something related to their newer Microsolver nodes in Houdini. So I'm gonna go with it, test with an older one, and then once it kind of works, figure out how to get it to work with the newer one. So we're getting some stuff working already, so that's kind of exciting. It's all kind of the wrong resolution though, so I'll have to copy the resolutions here. Yeah. So we kind of have different colored and different fuels of what's happening here, and it looks like, yeah, it looks like some of this stuff is actually working already. It's just maybe kind of dialing. Like the bounding block seems off currently. Friends are coming. Oh, that's kind of you. Oh, like at your place. Okay. Yeah. I'm using the royalty-free Lofi playlist. I could see if I could share a link. This one is called Egg Sunny Side Up by The Breed and Philanthrope. Yeah, so this is kind of my reel. Yeah, so I'm just a professional VFX artist that has worked at Pixar, Disney, and DreamWorks, and just kind of sharing the knowledge now on Twitch of like kind of my workflows, and ideally kind of like making personal projects and answering questions, and then taking all of that and making it like a workshop on YouTube so people can actually learn it. That's a little more polished, but kind of keeping it on the Twitch side. So it's kind of the goal. But these are just kind of a vary of shots that I've all worked on. So like any effects you see in these, like these sparks or these panda pulses, like this is all stuff that I've done in production. The destruction here. So like I'm doing flamethrowers right now because that's like my least area of expertise. But I've kind of done a variety of like all different types of effects. So I figure I'd get the thing I'm the least comfortable with out of the way, and then we can do more projects that I'm like a little more specialized in. So like here I did the sweat and like all the sweat dripping, the plasma ball for Boss Baby 2 in Tabitha's room, and then I did all these background shots with these pulses going on the roots from Strange World, which actually these versions I'm showing you were cuts from like my approvals. So in the movie they look completely different. And then I did some like flowers growing here. Some snow and then coffee. And then on Elemental, I primarily did all the water characters. Like I worked on them. I just did kind of shot work. I didn't really do the development side. That was kind of something that they did over the last like couple of years. So yeah, that's pretty much all the work I've done in the last 8 years. And now with kind of the industry kind of going sideways, kind of just going and trying Twitch some other areas where I could, you know, spread my knowledge to any students that are maybe wanting to do this for a career, and just kind of give industry guidance. So yeah. I want to thank you for joining me. So yeah, currently I'll show the current progress with the flamethrower. This is some tests that I was doing on the side. Go to the scene view here. So Houdini's primarily like in meter scale, so I'm kind of using this test geometry Tommy for the actual scale that we're working in, to kind of make sure everything's kind of centralized in that scale. So previously our emitter as just kind of like a quick particle sim. So nothing too fancy here, just kind of, yeah. Yeah, Tommy mentioned. So yeah, we're just kind of emitting some particles, making that into a little bit of a low res mesh for emitting flip fluids, which is like the liquid simulator in Houdini. And then these particles get some velocity. Hello. Welcome, Dimbledore. So yeah, these kind of get velocity here. And here I'm kind of adding some like spread variance, which this needs to get adjusted a little more. So, oh, nice. That's kind of you. So that is some spread variance, and then to add some like fluid. Yeah. Yeah, so here I'm kind of adding the different fuel types. So I kind of have colored like diesel is the blue, gas, which is green, and then napalm, which is red, which I'm kind of going back and adjusting a lot of these parameters because gas is less viscous than like napalm fluid. So like napalm fluid would like stick and burn, and that's kind of like why it's really bad, you know, like in frowned upon in war, where like gas, it burns up very quickly and spreads. And then diesel it's kind of like the middle ground. Like it has a higher burn like temperature rate, so it takes a hotter temperature for it to burn. So we're kind of like making some quick rules just by coloring the liquids, and I have some user controls for how much we want to add. Yeah. So we're kind of like adding some variants in here, which is kind of nice. You'll quickly see like how it's kind of affecting the simulation. So if I start hitting play here, you can kind of see our simulations kind of started. And one thing that I'm using for visualizing is like a dot product on the particles. So you can kind of capture an edge on it, and then take that edge and thank you for the follow, Salty Hammer on Kick. And you can kind of take that edge and add some like wind drag and stuff. So that's kind of like the biggest thing with these like simulations. A lot of air isn't like taken into consideration, so like you kind of have to fake the air. Not too much. Like YouTube is kind of dead, so like there's really nothing going on there. And then Kick, I maybe have like two people that have been coming in. But what's nice is like the chat that's over here. If I get comments on Kick or Twitch, you will actually see the different icons, so you can actually talk to people on Kick if you wanted to, if they start. So I could send a message on Kick and you kind of see.
Dimbledore just followed.
Hey, thank you for the follow, Dimbledore. So you can kind of see my message from Kick. It has like a little Kick icon. And it's just a little box that I'm using to kind of hide, to kind of show it. But yeah, it's kind of fun. The YouTube one like doesn't work at all, so I have to maybe like give them a note. But yeah, more with the flamethrower. We kind of get a resulted simulation that looks kind of like this. And if I preview it with like the different fuels, you can kind of see here, like the green, the blue, and like the red kind of lives a little longer. Yeah, flame hose, yeah. So, which is just kind of cool. And then like this is a different simulation, kind of messing with the attributes. You can kind of see how we're getting a lot of different behaviors here with the flame hose. But like since I kind of have this kind of in a good spot, I'm kind of doing more of the pyro simulation side. So that all kind of gets turned into volumes, which currently in the simulation, like that gets plugged into volumes, and we're using some of the particles to kind of make a pyro sprinkler. This kind of test here with the flame. So this is just a really low res simulation, because in Houdini, like sometimes if you want to emit, like do really large scale simulations, it's better to run a low res simulation first and then run it again at a higher resolution, using the velocity from the low res simulation. Because that's like a big struggle with doing simulations and this type of stuff, is once you turn up the resolution, it can turn into a nightmare almost, where like you have to redo a lot of like dialing in attributes and stuff. So here's a current high res simulation that was cached out. So you can kind of see it's taking the same kind of motion from the flame, like the low res simulation, but now we're getting a lot more details like in the flames. And I can kind of show the reference that we're following, which that's like another good thing, especially in production, is like we usually use a lot of you can kind of see how nasty that napalm looks, but yeah, you can kind of see here like kind of the shapes and the overall look. So sometimes it's easier to get the look and the shapes with the low res simulation, but then yeah, when you turn it up, it kind of breaks everything. And one thing I've kind of learned, like just studying some of this stuff during the day, is like why I'm going back to the fuel source is like we're seeing like a lot of the spray happening in front of the flames, and a lot of this is actually gas, like the gasoline. So you can just see there's gasoline with napalm. So like all of these little drips that are coming down from the hose that aren't burning are more than likely like bits and pieces of that napalm fluid. Yeah, I can make a thicker fuel source. Yeah. So that's kind of tricky with the reference, is like the source is actually super thin, but what's happening is it's like the gasoline is spraying outwards and like making a little bit of a hose, and then that gets combusted a little bit and expands, and that's where we're seeing like the big flames kind of appear later on with the combustion. But yeah, it's been a little tricky. So like now that we kind of have an overall workflow for at least getting the high res simulation, it's kind of me just going back and making the sources better and making it a little bit more like physically accurate, I guess you would say. So then we can kind of go back here, and then down here, it does, yeah, it can, yeah. So like the best example I can give you, actually, let me pull it up. So like Weta Effects that works on like the Avatar movies, like they have like custom in-house solvers that are like super physically accurate. So like from a lot of tests that they've done like on production. So the best example is like their new Avatar 2 video that they've released with side effects, which makes the software for Houdini. I went to one of their talks at SIGGRAPH, so if we kind of pull this up, went to their talk at SIGGRAPH, which was like a private, like enclosed, like no one was able to film it or anything. And they did a whole demonstration with like the water physics that they've made in Houdini, which again was like another in-house solver. And then they did another one with flames, and it was really cool with the flames where it's like very physically accurate, and a little like more accurate than what the native Houdini solvers do. So you can kind of see like the wind force blowing the flame there. But actually what they did, which I thought was super cool, was on set they actually went and like filmed some flames on set behind a green screen, and then also on black, so they can kind of get the proper values. And they had like a heat gun pointed at the flame so they can get proper temperature values, and they rebuilt their own simulation method in Houdini, which they call Loki, I believe. Yeah, it's super cool. Like so they physically captured the temperatures, and like they used the data from the temperatures they filmed on set to for shading the flames, like as the post process, and then also for like as a test here. Yeah. So like and you can see like there's a lot of details on this green screen too. Like this is like, I think they call this soot. So what was really cool is they used a candle. So they first started with the candle, and they made a simulation that matched the candle like exactly, and then they went back and they like did a bigger, like this is like a pot, like a big old like cast iron pot that they put some fuel in, and they're also testing with like different fuel types, and getting all that kind of working on set. And then then they just went back to the computer and like tested their solver, which I guess was a lot of touch grass. Yeah, so which was like pretty clever and really cool. And then actually did a test with the flamethrower too, which they went to like like an old I don't like one of those like old fields where they like buried a bunch of garbage, and they kind of like just went out there with the flamethrower and was filming it, and then they had the heat gun to it just to test it, and then they went back, which I don't know how much of it like translates and how much of it they still had to dial in, which that's like the trickiest thing with like doing simulations, is like constantly trying to find the right values before like you kind of get that sense of realism. And then their Loki solver, which they did for, so you can kind of see here, so this is actually really nice. So you can kind of see they actually simulate the oxygen. So like all of the red space here is the oxygen in the container, and if all of the oxygen like gets consumed, the flames go out basically. And you can see how there's like the propane flames, and then there's soot, which is like their really like thin detailed smoke. Their actual temperature values, which like are used for shading. Yeah. Carbon dioxide, like water vapor, and then at the bottom right you can see the actual simulation of the flames with the shading. So like I think this one is like a viewport render, and then this one here is the like final render that they made. So like Houdini's solvers that like I'm using, they don't go this far into detail, which is something that I'm kind of testing now, is like building one from the ground up with at least a rule of like different fuel types and making different burn rates. So that's something that we're going to be testing. But it's like super cool, and like that's like one of the biggest things in production. And then they did the same thing with like their drip solver. So like this was a test scene that they had someone film on set, and like they did a side-by-side comparison for like water dripping off people, and like these simulations took like days to simulate, and you can kind of see like this is their test of like simulating drips and like water kind of going down people. Their presentation on the water was super cool because they actually 3D printed the boats in the movie. Like the not the huge boats, but like the medium scale boats that people like are driving. They actually 3D printed one, and what they ended up doing was actually driving the boat, and they had like motion capture data on the boat, and then they recreated this the boat in CG, and they did the same exact animation that matched the cameras, and they matched the cameras digitally as well. And then they had a left screen comparison and a right screen comparison, and basically it looked exactly the same. Like the simulation on the left and the real world physics on the right were almost like perfect. So they like made this whole like stuff. Get a hands on the tools or framework. That was actually a question that they had at SIGGRAPH. Someone actually had a question about that, and in a perfect world that would be nice, but a lot of companies, they don't share these types of tools just because like in the film industry, like especially in live action, it's a constant bidding war against other studios. So if they make this an open source tool that other studios could get, then they're almost kind of like giving away the work. And they spent 5 years developing the water tools here, and then they spent that last year in the 5 years actually putting it in the movie. So 4 years of all of this was just testing the water and like getting the simulation right. And then the last year they had like 9-10 months to put it in the actual film, which one of my friends, she actually did. So they had a small office in Los Angeles, and they hired like any artist that was available in the area to help them finish the movie, which was like 90 hour work weeks. That's a little crazy. But yeah, so this flamethrower is nothing fancy. There's a lot of shading work that still needs to get done. And then also simulating the smoke with it. So this is like temperature also being mixed with like the smoke in the simulation. That's kind of the last step here. So we have this pyro simulation getting output, and then we're kind of bringing it in here. And here what I'm doing is masking like different areas for density. So like this is kind of the temperature here, and there's this flame field, which is like it's basically like a 0 to 1 temperature value that can get fit into this ramp, and I'm kind of isolating what areas from the flames I want to emit smoke. And then that gets plugged into another simulation down here, which this will need to get adjusted as well. And then this simulation down here, just it brings in the flames and the temperature data, and then it's just emitting smoke, which has a lot of work that needs to get done, especially like redialing in the details. We can kind of see it here. Like I think the buoyancy is a little too high here. So it's like rising a little too fast. Maybe I have to dial in the velocities, but then when we combine the two, we kind of we'll get something that looks a little better. And then we bake that volume into this pyro bake tool, which is like their way of previewing the shader in the viewport. But a lot of this stuff will have to get dialed in again. So there's like previewing the fire and like how the light scattering in the smoke, which a lot of films are doing a lot of this effect, like putting a lot of light scattering in their explosions. So you can kind of see like adjusting the light scattering, and then there's like individual controls for the flames. So maybe the flames like shouldn't be burning as hot, but then the light scattering kind of takes it up another notch. Which again, the shader will get adjusted. So like I did this explosion maybe a couple years ago in Houdini. So like I'm kind of going back to that project file and trying to see what I could go back and take from this. So you kind of see they're getting some of this, like they call it black body shading. So these like black little bits here, and the black body shader basically is like this color ramp, so it's like the temperature fall off. So this is like an which is, it's, if you kind of go back, so that like a lot of this streaking happening is from the velocity motion blur, and then you can see like the light interaction between the temperature and the smoke over here. So like this simulation, this frame I think took maybe like 6 hours to render, and it looked really bad like the previous render I had, but then I went back and was like, all right, let's test some new things today. And what's cool is like this render, so they have two sets of solvers in Houdini. There's like a smoke solver, which it's just for like, it's literally what it says, like it's just for smoke, like nothing with like related to flames. And then they have a pyro solver that's supposed to simulate the fire and the combustion, which they've kind of changed in the latest version. Like they've actually taken fuel sources out of it. So if you want to do stuff with fuel, you have to basically have the emitters do that versus like actually plugging in fuel in the simulation, which there's like pros and cons to that. So my goal is to kind of update what they have done and plug in fuel sources again, so then we can have like our 3 different fuel sources and our burn rates kind of going at different paces. So yeah, that's I think I kind of covered everything. Here is like again our a quick test I'm doing is just I just kind of put a grid here with some particles and isolating an area for temperature, so like where it's going to start burning, and then with that temperature that gets made into an attribute, and then doing the same thing with fuel. So I'm grouping areas for gas and napalm and diesel, and then just kind of coloring them so I know which ones are which, and then making those all into volume, so then we can have like our volume for the emission, and the same for the temperature, and then plugging that all into a solver, which we're testing here. So like a lot of what I'm doing is going into their custom solvers. Like this is their newer solver, and you can kind of see my fuel source here that's green, and there's temperature being emitted, which it's very low res, and like it's just mainly to iterate right now, but ideally what I want to do is have it subtract it. Yeah, I do. Since I'm not like an affiliate or anything yet, so after 6 days it will delete them. So yeah, it will kind of remove them. I think on YouTube they're uploading. I've been having issues with the YouTube uploads, like figuring that out, like how YouTube streaming works. And I'm mainly doing like 3 different websites right now just to see like which ones I'm getting more, more people like getting engaged with, which it seems like Twitch is benefiting a little more. So yeah, like ideally what I'm the ultimate goal is to do this stuff live, and then take the final setup that I've made and make a really polished tutorial for YouTube, and then at the end of the video just say, hey, if you want to watch it live, you can go to my Twitch channel and then you can watch it live, or I can answer any questions about the industry if anyone has questions and all that kind of stuff. So that's the plan. But yeah, like there's a few days back in the VOD which was kind of going through the setup, and now I have Twitch chat kind of going up here, which is kind of nice to see. So yeah. Looks like I'm seeing comments on, let me look up the Twitch. I think I'm seeing comments coming through, but I'm not actually seeing them on the UI. Okay, yeah, well today is just a shorter stream. Like I have probably about like another 40 minutes before I have to get off. But yeah, if you want to like pick it up, that's cool. I'll try to. I'm mainly gonna be trying to do like, I usually do like 11 to 3 a.m. just because like I'm working during the day, and it would be cool to do this like earlier in the day, but that's something I can't really do at the moment. But yeah. Oh, okay, never mind. I see what it's doing on the API. But yeah, thank you for the follow. That was nice of you. Yeah, we'll. Yeah. The VODs will always stay there. Yeah. Don't worry about that. Yeah, they'll just the older ones will go away after 6 days, but if I get affiliated, I think they'll start staying after that. I don't know how all that works. That's all stuff I'm looking into. But yeah. Yeah, have a good night. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Which maybe I won't go into this super technical stuff with like making my own solver now. Could do something a little different, or I could just start dialing in the flamethrower stuff some more. Let's see. Okay. So I think the simulation is a little different than what I'm trying to introduce more detail in, but also kind of keep the overall silhouette very similar. But you know what, we could flipbook this. So a flipbook in Houdini pretty much is just writing like an image sequence. So this is something that we can kind of play back and look at the simulation and what it's kind of doing at 24 frames per second, since that's pretty much the what we mainly work in. Like, so in games, you know, you have like your uncapped frame rates, but like in like film and stuff, we have our we basically stick to 24, and then there's some movies that like have done higher, like 30 frames per second, and like there's like a bunch of stories like of people getting sick watching movies at a higher frame rate. And it's kind of like those nasty TVs that like that take out the motion blur of everything, and it makes everything like smooth and like looks like a high frame rate. So I think overall, like, I'm still having an issue. One issue I've been finding is I think it's might be a little too fast than the reference, and then it's also like not preserving this shape, like where we're seeing the flame get like grow and get bigger from like the base of the hose over here. So I guess that's kind of one of the issues I'm struggling with, the details. If we go back to this setup, so I'm currently simulating with just gas and temperature, which some of it seems to be working. Like, I think this, we're seeing the temperature here. I should probably add some sort of black body shading to it. And currently our fuel is being emitted, but it's not fully like emitting in this area, so that's another thing I need to debug, which it seems it might be like a resize issue here. Advection, no, not advection. If I take all the buoyancy out, we shouldn't see the temperature rise at all, which that's kind of ideally what we want, and if I plug in my own temperature, we should start seeing our flames rising a little bit, which do temperature.
I don't know, but let's get out of here.
3. So, seems like some of this stuff is a little broken. And in Houdini, there's like different plugins. So there's like sourcing, advection, the updated velocity, and then like a pre-solve. So pre-solve is like bounding boxes, and then velocity update is like how we want to manipulate our current velocities. And then we have advection, which is basically like how what we're gonna, I believe it, the way it works is what we're gonna solve before it gets advected, and then we have, yeah, again, our sourcing, so how we're gonna emit our fluids, which in this case we have all our fuel types kind of coming in, and then as well as our temperature. So if we actually look at like there's a gas buoyancy node in Houdini, and pretty much what I'm doing is trying to recreate the temperature node. So there's like, if we look at the gas buoyant, oh, let's calculate. And so you can kind of see it's a little locked off here. So it's just using a temperature and a velocity. And if we plug this in, we should start seeing our temperature rise, which that's what we want. So there's actually something going on inside this temperature node then that is causing it to fail, which, let me take a look at this gas buoyancy. And here we go. So there's a thing called time scale. So this is like if you want to slow down simulations, which I don't really tend to mess with, but like if you're trying to like go from real, like I guess real time 24 frames per second to like a slow motion shot, that's something you kind of have to animate there. And then here we're kind of making our fields. So there's a temperature field that's getting constantly added if there's more temperature being sourced, and then calculating the maximum temperature here. So by calculating the maximum temperature, we can then make our like flame field, which is like the normalized field for like shading stuff. And then, yeah, so then we're also multiplying our temperature here, and here I'm using a density field, so this stuff actually won't work anymore, so that's fun. So this is mainly why it won't work, is because this is all for like density, and we're density is more like for smoke. That's kind of what it's more used for, so we won't do that density there. So instead we will add the buoyancy, so it should start lifting the temperature, and then we have our gas dissipate, which is going to start eating away at the temperature. And then overall we have our heat, which the heat is the maximum, which is that flame, that normalized attribute. So if we want to control the temperature, I think we need to do that as a post process, and I need to take this heat value, which instead of heat, this needs to be named flame now from Houdini's perspective. They renamed that, so we could put flame here. Actually, we could leave temperature there, but then we could put at flame.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
And then the flame is normalized, so from 0 to 1. It's from 0 to 1, and then we have our ramp that's
You know,
multiplying that. So
This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
So naturally, I'm just gonna start turning this stuff off until it works. Temperature, heat.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Every day, once a day, give yourself a present.
Make
Don't
sure
plan it.
that the time scales
Don't
are
wait for it,
working.
just let it happen. Could be a
Oh,
shirt
and
in
there's
the men's
no
store, a catnap in your office chair, or
buoyancy
2
lifts.
cups of good
There we go.
hot black coffee. Like this. A present.
So it's a little out of control, and we're not getting any resizing yet in the bounding boxes, which
Oh, man.
that's
that is the
fine.
spot. Nothing like a great cup of black
And we're probably not getting resizes because it's looking for density. So if we set this to temperature, should start seeing the rise of the bounding boxes. Yeah. Now we're getting some like really crazy temperature buildup. So the cooling rate now should start subtracting from that. And I'm gonna start toggling all of these back on. Nothing happens again. Okay, so it's mainly this wrinkle here. Which I'll leave all that for now. Just the temperature remap here. So we get something a little more stable if we copy it. And if we set the cooling rate a little lower, we should start raise higher. Okay. So maybe I won't add it. I'll just be using a copy. Maybe we'll try like a max function. Yeah. Okay, so now that's working. We need to get the divergence working. So this is what's going to start injecting the expansion in the simulation. The expansion and mainly the burning of the fuel source, because we don't want any burning happening if there's no temperature and fuel meeting. So I'm gonna kind of start doing what I did last time and just start turning some of this stuff off. Oh, I should probably be previewing it here. Okay. So the temperature goes to a burn field, so we should be seeing some burning happening. You make that yellow. Which I should try to see why this expansion here is not working too. So the fuel should be covered in the flames. Copy. So yeah, the fuel's being a little buggy, but I'm gonna try renaming that to like a density. Name this density. I plug density here, add density to density. Oh. Okay, so that's just not working entirely, that fuel source. That's fun. Oh, so that is why on the first frame it gets created, it's not fully going into those areas. So maybe we just need some more resolution in here then. So temperature. So another thing to note is like voxel size. So you can think of a voxel as like a 3-dimensional pixel. So currently in this volume we have 1,113 voxels within a 0.06 radius. So if we up the radius, or now we or lower the radius, now we have 4,000. So maybe making the resolution a little higher will help the fuel. Nope. This is fun. Okay. So might be something related to the sourcing here, which this isn't changing at all. So maybe it's not that. You look at the smoke solver. Let me try doing something like a gas resize field. Or resize fluid dynamic. Try maybe this instead. So we're seeing the temperature, but it doesn't seem to be tracking any of the other values from that volume. So maybe I need to specify it here. So temperature, velocity, and as well as the fuel. So we put the napalm fluid there, or density. So still not seeing the gas being emitted. We're seeing the temperature there. If we look at the gas here, cool. So now it doesn't look like it's coming in at all, which that's not ideal. Okay. What is this error? So bad parameter reference, pyro density, and flamethrower test.net, fuel gas size. Okay, so that might be our culprit. Because everything's trying to currently use the density field, and since we're not emitting density, we're only trying to emit temperature and flames. That does appear to be maybe our issue with the bounding boxes. So one thing I could do is I could break all of these. Or actually better, I can add like a global controller maybe instead. And we can name this control. And then we could add a spare input. And then also add some extra parameters here for like a user bounding box initial size. So we'll do 2 float 3 vectors, and then we could do bounds as 1 parameter, and then centroid for another, and then we could use the spare input here to reference a bounding box. So we could just for now do like a null here, and we could say out bounds accept, and then we need to just put some custom expressions here using like the bounding or the bbox expression. So it's bbox -1 d underscore x size And then Y size, Z size, and same for centroid. X, Y, and Z. Okay. So we can copy this parameter here and then go to the SOP scalar field here and to start pasting our bounds and all these. So we're using a paste reference, relative references. So it's just going to take whatever those values are in that global UI we've created and put them there. So we did. Oh. So we did bounds. So we just got to do centroid now. Center, center. So we have the centroids, and then we just need a resolution. So I'm going to copy the division size here. And then we could put our resolution here. And then there's actually this fun one, the SOP dimension. So if we want to do a 2D fluid, we could do our 2D fluid here and put this toggle here, and we could just say make 2D so now we have a parameter for making 2D fluids, and then we can go back here and might have to do something here. Actually, we won't do the 2D one yet, but that's a fun one to mess around with. There we go. Okay, so now we're getting the entire fuel source, so that's what we wanted. I'll save. So if we add the temperature back in, we should start seeing the temperature start rising, that's ideal. And then adding the divergence in, so this should start eating away at our fuel source, and it needs to start adding the burn. So there's this burn fluid, and I'm gonna make it blue, we'll make it purple for now. So if we start seeing purple happen, we know it's working. And we just go inside here, try turning all this stuff back on and see how this behaves. So not quite. Maybe the better approach for this, instead of having the temperature already inside, would be to have the temperature be moved down. So if we go back out, maybe we just use a transform node, and we can move this down by like 0.5 meters. So now our temperature will start rising, and hopefully it ignites and hits the fuel over here. So kind of see what that looks like. And Yeah, so currently the fuel's still not interacting with it still. So I'm gonna make sure that all of these fuel sources are set to copy, which they are. So we can go back in. So again, it's our temperature. So our temperature is going to be added to this burn field. So our first test is to make sure our burn field's being added. So if we go to the geometry spreadsheet here, we can see all our fields coming in, and we do see a burn field here. So let's start playing again. In this window. Check fuel, temperature to burn, add, burn to max burn. And the burn gets copied to this fuel gas. Our fuel gas gets subtracted. And then we normalize the burn rate. Test it again here. So I might have a hunch that the burn, there's already a burn field initialized here. Which still doesn't seem to be working. I'll do a test to we're just going to make our temperature and add it to the burn fields. So one thing we could try is copying it. So there's a gas match field, and what we could say, actually no, it's not it. So we could try gas calculate. So you could say our temperature is going into our burn. And that is going to be set to a copy. So nothing still fun. Could try doing it outside of this node. I don't think it's gonna have a big effect though. So maybe we won't create a burn field here. Okay, so that's what it was. So now we have a burn field being created. And there we go. So it's seems to kind of be working now. So burn gets copied. Okay. Oh, sorry, I had something in my eye. Okay. So you plug this one back in. You can just say temperature to burn again and see what that looks like. So temperature goes to burn. And then getting our burn maximum. So if I paste or just plug this in now. Temp to burn. Burn to fuel gas. Oh, I think what's happening is it's not being resized. So if we add burn there. I think it's working now. It's hard to tell. Let me turn the burn off. Okay. And then our soot, oh, so our soot's also same color as the burn, so that's not good. So we can make the soot a dark blue. Okay. Make this soot. Back inside, so I guess this would be a big giveaway if it starts working, is if we advect the fuel. if we inject the fuel, this should all start getting moved with the velocity fields. And it's not. Okay. So we know like that's not working now. So fuel gas spell. Which maybe this is just, yeah, this might just be an older node. So maybe if we just replace this with the newer one. Modified Mac McCormack. Test it now. Still nothing. So sets are fuel gas. Fuel gas. Check our velocity field. Okay. So we know the velocity field's working. Well, I guess obviously it's working. Sorry. Wonder if I need to set this to maximum. No. Oh, wait. Okay, well, we can pick this back up later, but I think ultimately this is kind of working. It's just a matter of figuring small things out.